Hello, welcome to the interview on France 24. Well, Burma took another step on its road to reforms this week as the United States lifted sanctions on its two top leaders, and the country's iconic democracy hero, Aung San Suu Kyi, got a rapturous White House welcome from Barack Obama. Now, my guest today, Thierry Falise, is a photojournalist who spent 25 years reporting from and about Burma. He's encouraged by what he calls the bright signs in the present, the bright points. But in a new photo chronicle called Burmese Shadows, Falise focuses his lens on what he calls Burma's dark past, a past of ethnic cleansing, brutal drug lords, child soldiers, and black zones where unspeakable atrocities are perpetrated against Burma's people. It's a past that continues to stalk Burma's present today. Welcome to the show. You speak of this book trying to look at the complexity of Burma's history, and you really want it to be a reminder of the turbulence of the very recent past and the human rights abuses. I'd like to sort of talk through some of the photos and start with one at the very heart of a lot of what is troubling Burma in the past, in the present. Let's show the viewers the first one. It's showing villagers fleeing the Burmese Army in Karen State, one of the regions. They're an ethnic minority. Tell us a little bit about this photo and the circumstances under which you took it.
It's a picture taken about 10 years ago, 4 or 5 working days from the Thai border in the so-called Black Zone you refer to. The Black Zone is a long strip of territory in ethnic area of Burma, from the south to the north up to the west, where the Burmese Army has given itself the right to shoot at sight.
Shoot on sight policy.
Yeah, because these territories are also, let's say, inhabited by, of course, ethnic population, but also they have also armed guerrilla groups, like the Karen, there used to be the Mon, the Shan, the Rakan, and so on and so on. So the policy started by the Burmese regime, the Burmese dictatorship, in the late 60s or early 70s, was to push all those armed groups towards the borders. And
push them out, displace them, basically.
And then, of course, the first one to pay the price were and are still in a lesser way, but the civilians, the civilian population. So, for example, the Burmese Army decided to launch an operation against the ethnic armed group in a determined zone. So thousands of soldiers comes, and of course, tens of thousands of civilians have to flee the village.
And you refer in your book to them, and they're called internally displaced persons, IDPs. There are millions of them.
Yeah.
Let's move on, because part and parcel of this phenomenon, our second photo here, shows a young child, if we could move on to it. He's 12 years old, this child, and he's armed. He's a soldier. You see this all over Burma.
Well, the Burmese Army has used a lot of child soldiers for many, many years in a rather systematic way. The ethnic groups also have used child soldiers, but let's say in a less systematic way. This story, this boy has a special story because he was a member of the so-called God's Army. The God's Army was an extraordinary story which happened in the late 90s, where a small group of, a splinter group from the main Karen guerrilla decided to create themselves, and they called themselves God's Army. It was an army of children and teenagers.
Only children? Like children, teenagers?
Yeah. There was a manipulation from adults, of course, but the ruler, the commander of this small group were 2 Karen twin boys, aged 9-year-old when I met them in 98.
Does that still exist today? Do you still have these child soldiers?
No, they didn't last very long. They lasted only 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on. Another photo involving, once again, children in very, very extreme conditions. This one shows a young boy. He's pumping water. Now, you describe this as he's on waste ground near a giant copper project, heavily polluted, the land around it polluted. Tell us about this photo here.
Yeah, this is a very recent picture, actually. It's taken in the so-called Burma proper. It is the plain of Burma, where most of the Burma ethnic population is living. And I think it's a very symbolic picture which illustrates the difficulty of daily life for most of the people in Burma. I think 70 or more than 70% of the population live in a rural area.
This is slave-like conditions, really.
Yeah.
This is slave labor.
I mean, there is a huge copper mine just nearby, and this little boy lives with his family and hundreds of other families on the waste from the mine, from the main mine.
You note in your book that the ground around here is heavily polluted with heavy metals, acids, toxins. Entire families living right on that ground.
Yeah, because they use this kind of product to try to collect what is possible to collect, and then they make some bricks of copper which they sell for a very cheap price to some Chinese merchant, for example.
And it's amazing because you also note in your book that Burma traditionally was very rich in natural resources, and the junta are the ones who've decimated those resources over the years.
Well, Burma, before independence in 1948, was the first exporter of rice in the world. Burma has a huge potential of natural resources, timber, minerals,
the copper,
water, and all the precious gems.
But the generals have basically squandered it, lined their own pockets with it.
And I mean, it explains also partly why the generals and the army has been leading those campaigns in ethnic territory, because the bulk of these natural resources are in ethnic territories.
A massive problem that continues to haunt Burma, the drug problem. There's an entire part of Burma, we can move on to the next photo, which is called the Golden Triangle. And this photo you describe in the book as showing women scoring the pods of popium. Now let's go back. Scoring the pods of popium opies in order to start what's called the milking process. Tell us about this.
Exactly. So this picture was taken in so-called Wa territory, which is an ethnic territory in northern Burma, not far from the Chinese border. At the time, there were huge, very vast opium fields, and at that time, Burma was the first producer of heroin in the world. In 2000 or 2002, Afghanistan took this position. But in the meantime, the drug traffickers, the Wa and the Shan and other ethnic groups, have shifted to a less visible, let's say, way of producing drugs, methamphetamine, which pills, yeah, which is invading the regional market like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, not so much for the Western market.
And you, interesting, you tell that you actually tried to negotiate. They gave you totally free access in this picture to this area, except you had tried at one point to negotiate to see one of these methamphetamine factories, and they said,
Well, it was a heroin lab, actually, even more symbolic for Western audience. Well, I think this is the only real picture I missed, and I could never take a picture of a heroin lab at work. Yeah, there was a negotiation because part of the leadership of the group I was with said, okay, we want to show you everything, but another part of the leadership, more business-oriented, wanted to hide them.
Let's move on. Another aspect of this drug war, it's not just these women scoring the pods, but also entire armies that you've been speaking about, armies run by these warlords, these drug lords. Tell us about this picture here. This is the Kun Sa army, which you mentioned.
Kun Sa was, until 1996, when he surrendered to the Burmese army, the very famous drug warlord. And he has his little empire with a capital not far from the Thai border, like a one working day from the Thai border. He has also an army, 20,000 people, very well equipped. They even have a SAM missile, you know, air to shoot planes, basically.
Presumably, the money he's making from this drug trade is not going towards the Burmese people.
No, not at all. No. I mean, a lot of this money was going to his own army and to his pocket and to his family's pocket also.
These armies continue to exist today?
No, because Kun Sa surrendered, so he was offered a safe house in Yangon. He died a few years ago. His army actually was, some soldiers just went back to the civilian life. Some others went to other Shan group who still exist today, but not as a drug army. Yeah.
Let's go on. A seminal event in recent Burmese history is our next photo. It's the so-called the Monks' Uprising. Let's see, there it is. I guess that was in Rangoon, I guess, the commercial capital. You say it was wrongly called, misleadingly called the Saffron Revolution. The monks neither wear saffron robes, and it wasn't a revolution.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was not a revolution because finally, after 10 days, the army decided to kill this movement. But there was a big hope, a very large hope, not only within the monks, because the monks started this demonstration, but then after a few days, you had 100,000 to 200,000. I mean, we don't
many more than they expected.
Oh, yeah, many more of civilian people who are cheering the people who are following. And but as I said, it was not a revolution because at that time the people, I think, were not ready to die for this because they were not organized. It's not like in 1988, so more than 20 years ago, people actually died for a revolution.
This was spontaneous.
Yeah.
And you also note, before we move on, that the trigger was economic. It was really about fuel prices rising over 500% or something.
Well, as always, when there is, let's say, a big movement like this in Burma, there was not a lot of them, but it always triggered by some silly economic measure or development. Yeah.
Yeah, and very quickly, let's just move forward to the final picture this week. Aung San Suu Kyi and Barack Obama meeting in the White House. If we could quickly show our viewers that. Go ahead to the president. People admire this woman. Some people say she's gotten too close to the president and to the government in power. What do you think of her as you look at that picture?
No, I think she, I mean, it's very obvious to me. The day she decided to go along with the new president, I mean, Thein Sein, and it means that she believes in his sincerity and his reformist mind. It's the day when Burma started to change for the better.
Thierry Feliz, we're unfortunately going to have to leave it there. I'll note for our viewers that last photo is not your photo from the book. No. That's a photo from the newswires from this week. Your book really looking back on the turbulence of the recent past in Burma and very much a reminder of the big challenges that remain as it tries to forge ahead on a new democracy. Thank you very much for being with us. Thanks to all of you for watching the interview here on France 24.